Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So I recently took a 2-week trip to Seoul, South Korea, and like many journaling girlies, I packed my journal and took her along and did not write once. It's actually a running joke that I have with myself that I have never, and I'll say it again to really emphasize it, never journaled while I've been on a trip. I am literally still waiting for the first time where I pack my journal in my suitcase and actually take it out before the trip ends. It means that I am always in a race against time and my memory once I get home to fill in all those pages before the details of my trip just slip away from me. And that is what I'm trying to combat in this video today. So come along with me as I bulk journal over 2 weeks of travel in Seoul, and stick around because this method might help you catch up in your own daily journal. So at this point, I'm thinking that if I can just get the basics of each day outlined and kind of set a schedule for myself over the next few days, I can knock these 14 days out almost like a school assignment. Not a very romantic way of looking at travel journaling, but to be fair, this is why I've never made a dedicated travel journal. I just need to put myself into the mindset of 15-year-old me who's doing my Romeo and Juliet scrapbook project for English class the weekend before it's due. I know I'll thank myself in the future when I'm able to look back at these pages. It's just getting everything out and onto the page. So first things first, I'm going to write out a basic outline of what we did every day. I used my camera roll to help with this. Referencing pictures is super helpful. And I also texted my boyfriend who was on the trip with me to give me some extra details that I might have forgotten. So with my days outlined, the next thing to do is to choose the pictures, tickets, stickers, everything that was going to go onto the page. As you can see, some things I've stuck down already, mainly just to keep them from getting lost in the depths of my suitcase as I was traveling. But every other day, completely blank. So I've spoken about this in a few videos and also made a short showing my method of bulk printing pictures for my journal. I like to outline in pencil where the photos are going to go before I print them, and then I bulk print them on normal printer paper, and they slot perfectly into the already created spaces on each page. I'm not gonna actually print out and put down the pictures until I've finished writing for each day, just in case I end up needing a little bit more space. So then the next step is writing out my header for each day. I like adding titles to my pages, as you've definitely seen if you've watched any of my other journaling videos. I'll either do this with a Crayola Super Tips marker, or I'll outline the bubble letters in pencil and fill it in with watercolor. I have a travel-sized watercolor kit that I love to use. It's the Winston & Newton watercolor kit. In all honesty, the actual art of watercolor still eludes me. I mainly use the colors straight out of the pan, no mixing, just to fill in my titles. Technically, the flight was at like 1 a.m. on this day. So like we technically left like the night before, and it was still like the night of the 6th for us, but I'm counting this as like the day because we kind of skip time almost. It was like really confusing trying to figure out the time zone for this. I didn't like sync my time zone for a while, so like my first few pictures from the trip are in a different time zone, so very confusing. But this is like the day I'm calling the flight day, you know.
Okay, I'm just gonna cover this with a sticker. It's fine. I'm gonna see how big, like, these food ones are, see if I can cover it. Okay, this is actually close to the dessert that we got, so let's see if this covers it correctly. Looks a little thin, I don't know. You know what? That's pretty close. Let's see. I'm like holding it by the straw. Oh my god. Yeah, perfect. Perfect.
Okay, so it's actually time to write everything out. Whatever my handwriting looks like by the end of this is none of my business, frankly. So I have been journaling since I was a little kid. I have journal entries from like the age of 4 onward. I think my first ever journal entry was about how my mom was driving us home from the bank, and when I got home, I wanted to watch Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron. Really riveting stuff. But in all that time, my handwriting has never improved. Oh my gosh, I talk about this all the time, actually. I think neat handwriting is one of those things that people think they can just achieve by writing a lot, but it actually takes a lot of purposeful practice. That's so interesting to me because a lot of things you can get better at it just through mindless repetition. But handwriting, even if you write all the time, unless you're actively thinking about it constantly as you write, it's not going to get any better. Anyway, that's just my own personal struggle. So as we watch me write out all of these entries, here are some of my video clips from Korea. It was so surreal to be on the plane heading over to Korea. Whenever you have a trip that you've planned for so long and suddenly you're on your way there, it's like your brain just can't compute it sometimes, and I definitely was feeling that. What struck me about the plane was that it was so clean. As soon as we boarded the plane, it like smelled really good. Everything was spotless. We were flying Premier Air. Usually my boyfriend's dad talks about how he always flies Korean Air, but the tickets for Premier Air were cheaper for the dates we were looking. And it was a really great experience. We had a middle seat to ourselves. That was a game changer. It was kind of a gamble. We bought an aisle and a window, and when we got to the front desk to check in at the airport, the desk agent was like, hey, just so you know, you have someone sitting in between you. And we asked if there was another open row with an empty middle seat, and there was, which was a very big deal. So thanks to that desk agent, we were able to change to the empty row, and then we had the whole row to ourselves, which made a huge difference when it came to just like general comfort and being able to take turns sleeping on the plane. It was so nice. It made the experience fly by. Once we landed, it was around 5 a.m. The sun had just come up. We got picked up by my boyfriend's mom and went to her apartment, which is about an hour-ish outside of Seoul. It's hard to really tell geographically, you know, where the city proper extends to. We're about an hour outside of, I feel like, what you would consider the main part of the city, like where you can see the tower and other kind of tourist attractions. We had this beautiful breakfast, and we took a stroll around the neighborhood, and then we headed out. We got some coffee. His mom was running some errands, so we were just kind of walking around the neighborhood trying to get adjusted to the time difference. And then later in the day, I think she was definitely trying to keep us awake by running us like all around town. We went to the Han River. It was so cool. There were so many people out, a lot of run clubs, families with little kids, even though it was pretty late in the day at this point. And she took us to, it wasn't a 7-Eleven, but a very similar convenience store that was basically in the park on the river. And they had all the typical kind of like self-service food options. But then outside, they had all the stations with like microwaves and hot water and all those things, which I thought was really interesting. We had some tteokbokki. It was so good. I was so excited to eat like tteokbokki in Korea because I'd had like a Trader Joe's version a few times. And I think at this point it was around 8:39. We were just trying to stay awake as long as possible. His mom walked us up and down the path by the river. And then I think finally she let us give in, and we had like a 40-50 minute car drive home, which I think we both fell asleep for. And then we truly slept like the dead that day. The next day we went to the palace. It was kind of cloudy and overcast the first week that we were there, so we didn't end up doing the like hanbok rental. We did do it the following week, but the first time we went, we were just wearing our normal clothes. It was such an insane visual to see this palace kind of come out of nowhere in the middle of a very densely populated city, like so many buildings surrounding it, but then towards the back of the palace you just see this big mountain. It was really, really cool, and the grounds of the palace itself were sprawling. There were so many people there at the entrance and in like the first entranceway of the palace, but as you got further into the grounds it got really quiet, which was really nice. And my boyfriend's mom was super knowledgeable about the history and was kind of giving us our own tour, which was really fun. The next stop was the Bukchon houses. We did get there kind of late in the day, so we were able to walk around for about 10 minutes and then instantly got shooed out by the little neighborhood watch they have there. But there were still a bunch of like small artisan stores open in the area, which was really cool. Then for dinner, we had naengmyeon noodles. My boyfriend was so excited about that. He was talking about it all day. I think that's like his number one meal that he had missed. So he was super excited about it. And it was really good. It was a Michelin-starred restaurant. And I'd never had anything like that before. And it was really refreshing after we'd been walking around all day because the noodles and the broth were really cold and fresh. On the 10th, we went to the Korea Folk Village Park. It's kind of like almost a walking museum and then a kiddie amusement park. Like there's a section with kiddie rides that wasn't super open while we were there. The majority of the park are these really old style Korean homes, and we read somewhere in the park that they were actually relocated from different villages around the country. We were walking around wondering if they were recreations or if they were genuine buildings, and a lot of them are genuine buildings that have been brought to the park for preservation. There were a lot of school groups there, which was very cute. I feel like I would have loved that field trip in elementary school, and it seemed like they were having a lot of fun. We felt really out of place because we're both in our 20s and the main clientele were under the age of 9, but it was a really fun day. We had some delicious rice wine in the park. They actually had a building, I almost said on campus, but in the park itself, where they fermented their own wine, so it was really fresh. And then we wandered into the city just outside of the park and we ordered a late lunch, which was so good. My boyfriend was feeling a lot more confident in his Korean speaking abilities at this point, and he was able to place the order completely by himself, which was very impressive, and he was really stoked about that. The next day we were in Itaewon. We had kind of planned to get haircuts, or more accurately, my boyfriend's mom had planned for us to get haircuts, and she delivered on that. So we got our hair cut by one of her friends who has a studio out there. It was a very cool experience. And then we were kind of just left to wander around by ourselves for a bit. It was a very cool area. We were there pretty early in the day, so I think like as obviously it's a party and bar area, as it gets later in the day it would get more busy, but it was kind of also nice to be there in the afternoon and not have too many crazy crowds while we were out there. So after that we headed to the Namsan Tower. We were traveling with my boyfriend's mom who has a car, so that's why it was a lot easier for us to kind of like bop around to these different places in the early trip. We got love locks at the top of the tower, which was very cute. There are so many up there. I'm hoping that we'll be able to keep track of where it is whenever we want to go back. So fingers crossed. And then we had another very delicious dinner. I have never eaten so much red meat in my life, but I can't lie, I was really enjoying it. But I did notice that I was kind of just constantly full. I never really had a chance to get hungry, I think because I was just consuming so much protein, like an absurd amount of protein in every meal. So even like waking up in the morning, I was never hungry, but I just kind of had to overcome that at a certain point. On the 12th, we spent the entire day inside the Aquafield sauna at the Starfield Mall. This was such a crazy experience for me. I have never even gone to a normal like American sauna or spa, so to get kind of tossed into this was really interesting. The place was massive. I mean, the mall itself felt like it was a city, but then the Aquafield inside of the mall, you know, you're walking up to this front desk and it just looks like a front desk to nowhere. Like, it looks like it should just be a door that opens onto a brick wall at the edge of the mall, but no, it was its whole own area, and you went up an escalator and it was just this massive, it felt like almost an indoor water park, and there is an indoor water park section that we didn't even go to. It was a Saturday, so there were a lot of families there. It was really busy and lively, but everything was running smoothly. It was very clean. Our food came out super fast. And we were never like overcrowded in any of the like hot temperature rooms or anything. There was a lot of space for everybody, so it was really impressive just like how large of a scale they were operating this thing. There was even a foot spa bath outside, like on like a deck area, and it was softly raining the whole day, so it was so relaxing. It was a really great time. I didn't expect to like it as much as I would, just because I was kind of, it felt, just because it was so unfamiliar to me, but I ended up really enjoying it. The only thing was like the showering portion of the sauna trip was a little bit much, but I just went by myself. And I think that made it a little bit easier because at least it was like strangers and not my boyfriend's mom being there. And my boyfriend was constantly joking about how it would be fun to come back in the fall with my friends. And I was like, yeah, I'd have to soft launch that idea. I'm not sure how they would respond to it, but a very cool experience and really delicious lunch. I'm describing all the food as delicious, but you know, it is. So that's my truth. We woke up on the morning of the 13th and there was snow. And so we were seeing snow and cherry blossoms at the same time, which was really cool. We went to the Starfield Library this day in Gangnam. It was so packed. Like, I think this was like honestly the most crowded place that I visited, even more so than the 2 times we went to the tower. It was okay. You know, it's a cool spot, but it's just full of people. And everyone's just trying to take a picture, take a video. It doesn't really feel like it's actually a library. But the mall that it's inside is really cool. I was looking for souvenirs in there. I bought a little phone case in there. And then we ended up taking public transportation to Hongdae. We just wanted to like walk around and do a bit of shopping there. We went to a sheep cafe, which had little lambs inside. The owner definitely loves his lambs. There's probably a little bit of a questionable practice there with having the lambs just kind of in a major city, but I would assume that they, go home at the end of the day and that they're not there every day. They were very clean, very soft and well cared for. Definitely a very interesting sight to see. And we just did some shopping around the area. I wanted to get a lot of stationery for my roommates and also just like for my journal, so I was definitely able to hit those. The 14th was probably the worst weather of the whole trip. It was so rainy and cold. I definitely didn't have the right clothes. I didn't have rain boots or anything, so I was just trying to keep my sneakers dry all day. We went to the National Museum, which is free, and there were a lot of floors, a lot of exhibits. It was definitely very cool. But after we were there for a few hours, we kind of didn't really know what to do. We were kind of just wandering around that part of the city, so it was kind of a bust of a day, but it was still good to get to go to the museum, and it was the right day to do it because the weather was so bad. On the 15th, the other half of our trip buddies arrived. It was my boyfriend's dad and brother, and so then it was our mission that day to keep my boyfriend's brother awake. So we went shopping. I got some perfume, which had been one of my random goals for the trip. I don't have really any interesting perfumes, so I wanted to just get like a little perfume somewhere, which I did. There were a lot of vintage stores. There were a lot of like cool snack booths to eat at. And we ended up going to a Japanese restaurant for dinner that my boyfriend's mom found. And it was really great. They had a lot of stuff that I could eat that I didn't expect I'd be able to. On the 16th, my boyfriend was out most of the day. He had a dentist appointment, and then he also had a golf round with his dad and brother, so I spent a lot of the time with his mom, and we went to Olive Young, and she was really great about speaking to the workers and finding out what would be good for my skin and like color matching me to makeup and finding me a lot of moisturizing SPF, so that was a really fun day.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Is that right? And then 11 done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Left to go. Okay.
On the 18th, my boyfriend had another golf round with 2 players that his family know. So they were out of the apartment really early in the morning, and around 11, I left with his parents to go pick them up from the golf course, which was up in the hills and like just really beautiful to look at. And then we all got lunch together afterwards, and I ate a ton. And I'm glad that I did, because then we went to the fish market for dinner, and I do not eat too much fish, and I definitely was a little out of my depth with a lot of the food at the fish market, and my boyfriend was as well. We like eating, you know, very easy to eat sushi, but when you get to like hardcore seafood and raw fish, that's where I start to flag a little bit. But a very interesting experience, and it was nice to be there with a local and not feel so completely out of sorts. On the 19th, we have another appointment. My boyfriend and his brother had like eye doctor appointments, so I was just kind of walking around a like glasses store the whole time. They had a whole display of color contacts, which I thought was really interesting. And I was joking to my roommates that I was going to bring them out here and we were all gonna get matching color contacts. Then we ended up meeting some family friends for dinner, and we were out in Hongdae for that. So then we stayed out and we went to a party that one of their mutual friends was hosting, which was so fun.
What's crazy is that it's like not even that much. It just feels like a lot. I'm just out of practice, but like look how little these pages are. It's not that many words, right? I don't know.
On the 20th, all 3 of us kids hungover, we went to lunch at something that my boyfriend's dad kept calling an old style restaurant. And once I got to the place, I like understood what he was saying. It almost looks like you were inside someone's house. It was really interesting, but the food was so good. After that, we finally went back to the big palace and wore the traditional clothing. His mom was so psyched that we were doing this. We took so many pictures. We also saw the huge Buddhist temple that is nearby, and because it's almost the Buddha's birthday, it had so many lanterns and lights up all over the place. It was really beautiful. The 21st was our last full day, so we went back to the Seoul Tower. We hadn't bought tickets to go all the way to the top the first time, so this time we did, and it reminded me a lot of the tower in Toronto. I went to Canada with my parents 2 or 3 summers ago, and the view and like the experience and the things you could do at the top of that tower were very similar to the activities and sights at the top of the Seoul Tower. It was just like very funny. Even the photo booth that they have was like exactly the same. For some reason, the boys desperately wanted to try Korean Burger King, so that was our next stop. And then I dragged them to like the flagship Olive Young store, which was so packed. I had like this long list of things that I wanted to get for myself and also for my little cousins who had requested that I send them Korean skincare. So had to get all that out of the way. Then we had dinner with the parents, and I want to say a meat packing district. So like out on the street, it looked kind of like we were in a back alley, but when you went up to this restaurant on the top floor, it was a super fancy restaurant and you could pick your meat out at the counter. His dad was looking forward to this so much. He said he was kind of like using it being our last day as an excuse to go to this place for dinner. Our flight home was a very different experience than the flight in. We had a layover. So it was nice that it was broken up, although I was really trying to sleep on the first flight. We had about a 9 or 10 hour flight to San Francisco, but we left at 2 p.m. or 1 p.m. Seoul time, so I was not able to fall asleep because it was just the middle of the day for me. We landed in San Francisco then, and it was only like 6 or 7 in the morning, and we had a 9-hour layover, so we had a rental car and we took a drive. We went on a hike at Purisima Creek Redwoods Grove, which was really cool. It was so quiet. There weren't even really the sounds of nature or crickets or birds or even the wind. It was so silent and the air was very cool. I think because we were right in the cloud cover. It was a really, really interesting hike. But as we were walking in, we saw a sign that basically was like, hey, so-and-so group is doing research into the behaviors of mountain lions. So, the mountain lions are going to be tagged. So please don't disturb any equipment or mountain lion that you see. And so then the whole time that we were walking deeper and deeper into the woods, we were like, are we going to see a mountain lion? So we didn't stay too long on that trail specifically. We realized we kind of had the perfect amount of time to come off the hiking trail and go and see the Golden Gate Bridge. So we went out and saw that. I described it in my journal entry as like seeing a giant come out of the fog. It was very surreal to look at, just from having seen it so often in like pictures and movies. It was weird to suddenly just be at the bridge, but it was a really cool sight to see. Our last meal before the second flight was In-N-Out. I'm never in California, obviously. I live in New York and grew up in Pennsylvania, so I never have a chance to eat In-N-Out. And it was so delicious as like our first full meal back in the States. We then landed in Newark around 11:30 p.m. We took a shuttle to a nearby hotel where the car was parked, got in the car and drove it back into the city. And thanks to the late night deliveries of New York, we were able to have some nachos and quesadillas at 2 a.m. on my bedroom floor.
Oh my gosh. Hand literally feels raw. This is a bonus, but I feel like it's part of the experience, so I'm gonna do it anyway.
The very next day, my roommates and I had the 20th anniversary screening of Pride and Prejudice. We had to go all the way downtown to see this, so it was like also at like 7 p.m. So I was like really concerned that I wasn't gonna make it and that I was gonna fall asleep in the middle of the movie. And I did have to go to the bathroom about an hour into the movie and just kind of like wake myself up. But I'm so glad that I got to go. It was so funny how many just other girlies there were in the theater. It was a pretty packed screening, so that was a lot of fun. And I slept so well that night also.
It was so painful. Oh my god. Look at this. Can't really tell, but it's like I have a blister here. This one you can really see. This is how I know I don't hold a pencil correctly. I especially don't while I have the long nails. Oh, that's why at one point I was just going like this, because I was trying to avoid like hitting here. But I know like in general I definitely don't hold it correctly. I think you're supposed to hold it like the right way. The right way is like this. This. See, I don't even know. Don't even know. But hands shaking.
Wow, we did it! I honestly did not expect to be able to complete this mini journaling marathon, but I'm so relieved that I was able to. And now I'll be able to look back at these 2 weeks in the future. Seeing my memories in a physical journal just feels a lot more personal and satisfying than scrolling through an album on my phone. I hope that if you are also a daily journaler or just want to make a record of your travels, that this was helpful as a possible method for you to catch up on all those days you missed. It definitely just takes a bit of a time commitment and hunkering down, putting pen to paper, and just kind of steamrolling through all those days. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to check out my other journaling videos. I've been posting for quite a while on this channel, so I have a bunch of like daily journaling vlogs and also themed spread videos. Thanks for following along, and I will see you in the next one.